Hello, and we are live. Welcome to a special co-production, as I like to call it, Useful Idiots, Katie Halper Show co-production with me, with Matt Taibbi, and with our special guest, Marcia Brown, who is a writing fellow at the American Prospect, and she focuses on immigration, and she was just down at the border. So we're really excited to have her here and also ask her not just about what's happening there in general, what she saw, but also about this story that she wrote. It's kind of a meta story, a story about a story, about the way that CNN has maybe presented things in not the most accurate way,
Well,
not the
they
most.
might have stepped in it. That's kind of
They may
more
have
what happened.
stepped in it. Yeah,
Yeah,
we'll say that.
yeah.
Although stepping in it, I feel like implies more of an accidental thing than well, you know what? Let's not give it away. We can vote
Right.
for the best word after we've heard the story. So, Marcia, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me. It's very good.
Of course, yeah. Can you talk about what this story you stumbled upon about CNN stumbling upon an alleged border crossing,
Yeah.
Rio Grande crossing?
Yeah, it seems like there was a lot of stumbling here. So a lot of advocates who work down at the border, they work with asylum seekers, immigrants, or they work, in this case, actually on conservation. They got this video and it had a lot of red flags to them, and they raised these red flags with a lot of different folks, but no one really wanted to pick up the story. And then I also did some stumbling, and I stumbled across the story because of my trip down to the border. So I was in contact with some of these folks, and basically there are a lot of red flags in the video, and these advocates actually warned CNN before they aired the video. They said, this video doesn't seem quite what it appears to be, and maybe you should do some investigating before you air the video. And some of those things were, the asylum seekers or migrants were all wearing masks. They had life vests. The smuggler was wearing a black ski mask and fatigues, which normally the smuggler really tries to blend in, because if they get apprehended, the consequences for the smuggler, the human trafficker, are a lot bigger than for the migrants. So there's all these different red flags, and yet CNN went ahead with the video.
Right.
Are we able to watch any of this, or Katie?
Yeah, I'm looking right now actually for the video. We have images. Is the video? Do you link to it in your piece? I can't remember.
I do.
Where
Yeah.
you do.
It should
Okay.
be the first link in the piece.
The first what?
Be the first link in the piece.
Okay, I'm looking right now. Sorry, I saw it.
No. I think at the top.
So yeah, while Katie sorts that out, this is a thing, right? This is like a genre of thing that happens, right? And typically it doesn't show up on CNN. It shows up on where would you normally see videos like this?
Yeah. So when I was learning about this, what folks told me is that often there's a far right local outlet called Tripwires and Triggers, and they do a lot of coverage of the border, and a lot of times their coverage ends up in larger far right or just conservative, more mainstream media outlets. So the Epoch Times covered this, a different version of what appears to be the exact same incident. So with this weird crossing in the middle of the day, appeared in the Epoch Times, Breitbart, Tripwires and Triggers, two congressmen shared it. So Chip Roy shared it, and Henry Cuellar shared the video.
Wow.
And so it really went viral on right-wing media. And this happened, a little bit before it appears CNN went out in the boat when they were, and then they filmed this very similar incident. And I should say that it doesn't seem to be the case that the two videos were like aware of each other. But the boat that CNN went out in, I have all these screenshots of Facebook posts basically where this local GOP candidate basically took CNN out on the boat and really planned this. And he says a lot of like anti-immigrant stuff. He also claimed to have seen an infant fall into the water during this crossing, and yet like nobody is investigating this. And so again, it doesn't really appear that both videos knew about this, but there are a lot of these screenshots that show that CNN was going out with these sort of conservative, to say the least, candidates and some other operatives. Yeah.
And so can you set this up, what we see right here? Can you guys see this image?
Yeah. Yeah. So that's actually a great little screenshot. And so you can see the boat in this image and the smuggler in this image are basically the same as in both videos. It has the same kind of markings on the boat. And in audio of the video that went viral on the conservative side, you can hear, I mean, we don't know who's behind the camera, although Jason Jones of Tripwires and Triggers is he's, attributing the video to his work. So we don't know exactly who's behind the video, but, they're talking about like, oh, are these 26s, referring to the migrants, and 26s are people who have been formally deported. So how would you know that? When they're saying yes. And then there's another audio segment where they're talking to each other, and one guy asks the other guy, and he says, does this guy set you up, referring to the smuggler? And he says, oh yeah, all the time, grade A. Right. Which just, again, seems
does he hook you up, right? Like,
does he hook you up?
Like, yeah. Not set up like Sting set up, but yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So here's a slightly bigger version of it.
Okay,
but this is obviously from people who are trying to prove that there is a crisis. The person who posted this.
And I mean, for what it's worth, this is a very highly trafficked area in the Rio Grande. But of course, you would think Border Patrol would have it locked down if it's so highly trafficked. And that's what they said in their denial when they said, we unequivocally did not work with media or any other folks to stage this incident. But yeah, so I mean, you would think they would have it locked down, and yet this happened in broad daylight, and it was dozens of people. And CNN says they saw the boat go back and forth 6 times. I mean, that's going to take probably an hour, and nobody was apprehended during that time.
Right, and Matt, I have the video which we can play a little bit of, and just make sure we talk over it so we can easily make this fair use, which obviously it is. But yeah.
Yeah. So okay. In the video, just quickly, if I remember correctly, they actually did their own disclaimer at the top somewhere during the story, where they were saying, well, it may be, like, they expressed some kind of reservations about the video themselves at some point. Did they not? Or I remember David saying that.
I don't remember that, but I could be just forgetting that. Yeah. I mean, again, CNN was warned in advance, so it would be good if they had expressed some reservations about the video. In the audio, you can hear the reporter saying that they stumbled across this, this crossing within sort of minutes of being out on the boat.
Right. Okay. Well, let's
take it away, shall we?
All right, so this is just Erin Burnett, and this is her voiceover.
Yeah.
All right, so can we fast forward to?
Yeah. Where should I?
There we go.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. So those are the same guys in those screenshots.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is like the idea behind the story is that these sort of anti-immigration activists are taking CNN on a guided tour of just how bad it is, right? So,
I mean, yeah, what's happening is kind of the conflating of two stories here is like, oh, there's a surge at the border, and there's a humanitarian crisis with unaccompanied children. And I think most people would say, the numbers of unaccompanied children and the problems with trying to house children humanely, that is a real humanitarian crisis. And the Biden administration could be doing better on that. I don't really think that's controversial. But then there's this framing of people are just crossing the border and the border is basically open. And that's all of, Biden's policies is really just not true. These numbers are very normal. I mean, the numbers rise. It's getting warmer. So this is like reflective of like seasonal migration. There's also a new president, which also sometimes can encourage more people to migrate. And there's also this gigantic backlog of people who were waiting because there was a pandemic, were unable to cross or thought that they would have no chance because of Trump. And then the second part of this is that almost all of these people are being deported like within 24 hours, basically, under this Title 42 health order, which the CDC issued and, you know, basically allow the Trump administration and now the Biden administration to deport pretty much everybody. So there's really no asylum at the border even.
Right, and you wrote about that, right? Like, what can you talk a little bit about that? Sort of, it's been in place for like a year now, right? And how exactly does it just gives them carte blanche to override any other considerations in making the deportation decision?
Yeah, absolutely. Right? So they're not even really, so they're not processing people the way they would normally. They're not giving people a chance to say, I'm seeking asylum. And so that's just not happening. And actually under Trump, which this was unprecedented, Trump was deporting unaccompanied children. That ended because of a court case. And so that's, you know, also part of it. And some people, there has been some reporting that says that the unaccompanied children crisis is actually being inflated because of Title 42, because some parents like come with their children, arrive at the border, and then they know that they can't get over as a family unit. There are a few exceptions to that, but really not very many. And so they are, you know, they're sending their children over. This, I don't know how common this is, but some people say it is contributing to that rise. And then, especially with the apprehensions, I mean, Title 42, I think it's 40% of Title 42 apprehensions are people who are trying multiple times. So the numbers look way bigger than they would because it's people who are trying again and again.
Right.
Like actually, I have the shorter video, by the way. Oh, Matt, did I cut you off?
No, go ahead.
Okay, I found the shorter video. Okay.
This is from Mexico.
Can you guys hear that?
Near the town of Hidalgo. That's when we stumble across a group of migrants loading into a raft.
Soy amigos. Hey. No enemigo. No, we're good.
Not enemies.
Our group eases the tension. A few men appear to lead the raft full of parents and young children to the U.S. side.
So
the Rio Grande Valley has been ground zero of the latest surge of migration, and here you see the operation unfolding right in front of us. ¿De dónde vienen? De Honduras.
Okay, so just a couple things to point out, right? So it's broad daylight, right? These things don't tend to occur then. Also, they're just asking where they're from, and they're offering up the country of origin.
Is that normal or not?
I don't know that that's necessarily super abnormal.
Okay.
I mean, I think it is, you know, some people do talk about showing migrants or asylum seekers' faces or their consent. And I think in this case, actually, it's blurred out. But in the in the videos that went, you know, viral across right-wing media, that didn't happen.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. Can we see a little more?
Yeah.
De Honduras. After the first raft crosses the river, the magnitude of this moment reveals itself. Dozens of migrants emerge and walk down to the river's edge. You can see that this is a serious operation. There are dozens of migrants. There are still some above the hills there, and it is quickly moving. A handful of guys move people back and forth on these rafts. They have life vests for the migrants. It's a highly organized system. We'll watch the raft make about 6 trips back and forth. Scenes like this are escalating in the Rio Grande Valley. There's the growing perception among migrants in Central America that the Biden administration is more welcoming, even though many are still being turned away.
These are really, really high numbers. I've never seen it this busy in 19 years.
Chris Cabrera is with the National Border Patrol Council, the union that represents Border Patrol agents. He warns the agency's frontline field stations, like this massive tent facility, are being pushed to the limit with migrant custody.
Okay, 1 second before we do that, just to go back, want to make sure everyone noticed, like, of course, they're not, migrants are not typically given these surgical masks, according to your piece.
By smugglers, So, I mean, so if you're just, and again, most people are crossing at night, so it's just, or the life vest, that's another factor. And I also want to point out that he's interviewing the National Border Patrol Council president. There is a gag order right now, so it's an informal gag order. So there's, I think all comments have to be routed through the Washington office right now. But again, that's the Border Patrol Union, and in the past they've shown sort of anti-immigrant tendencies, according to people I've interviewed. So there is that as well.
Right. Okay, let's go back to the videotape.
We're crowded. We're overcrowded. We don't have anywhere to put people, but we have them in our custody, and the system is bogged down, and there's no place for us to send them because the next level is not open yet.
This is a rare view of the field station set up about a month ago by the Border Patrol. The tents are used to handle the initial field processing for the tens of thousands of migrants apprehended in the Rio Grande Valley. There are bathrooms, first aid care, and migrants are removed from the area.
Yeah, sorry.
No.
There's
so
no more from the trip, is there?
That's really the trip. But I mean, it's all part of this narrative where you're conflating these issues of the unaccompanied children and this, rising number of immigrants who are coming to the border. And again, the vast majority of those people are being turned away almost immediately. So this idea of, there's the border is open is just not true at all.
Also, Brad, friend, who's on the back end. Hi, Brad. Everyone say hi to Brad. He just shared with us a Pew poll. What is this? A Pew poll? Where, let's see. It would be great, actually, if you could put that in the comments. That would be great, Brad. But maybe not the expletive that you use to describe this guy, the Border Patrol guy who Brad may or may not have called a lying sack of something. Says he hasn't seen it like this in 19 years. And 2 years ago, it was a higher rate, much higher than it is right now.
Right.
So,
and there was no media crisis. I think one of the best examples of what is happening right now in terms of the media narrative is the Biden press conference most recently. It was something like, I don't know the exact number, but there were several questions about immigration and none about the pandemic, for example.
Right.
And you could tell Biden was extremely well briefed on the issue because he knew that is now the mainstream media issue, even if it is not necessarily the biggest issue or should be the biggest issue.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. This crisis. Right. Yeah.
Now, so within this whole drama, there's now a secondary drama, which is you wrote a piece about it, right? Which well, first of all, just if you can just quickly summarize what the piece is called, Did CNN Air a Staged Migrant Crossing of the Rio Grande, right? And essentially it says a lot of the things that we've already talked about. And obviously CNN was not happy about that. How did they respond initially, or what was the response?
Well, I mean, initially they stonewalled me. I reached out to CNN multiple times. I reached out to their communications person. I DM'd him. I also WhatsApped one of their producers who I knew had worked on this clip, and really no response. And then the story goes live. No response. And then they get their media reporter, Oliver Darcy, who used to work for conservative media, The Blaze, to write about this in their Friday night newsletter. And so in their newsletter, they deny everything. They say Border Patrol denies it. They don't really point out anything actually wrong in our story, or anything they are really taking mad about. But it's just, And they also got my editor's statement wrong. So
there's a couple of things. Let's go through their statement, because it's kind of a classic petty big media bureaucracies statement. Let's see. So it says a progressive website called The American Prospect published a post suggesting that CNN urged a, quote, staged migrant crossing at the Rio Grande, possibly with the help of Customs and Border Patrol. The post was in reference to a report from correspondent Ed Lavandera that aired earlier this month, which showed dozens of migrants attempting a crossing along the U.S.-Mexico border. CNN was on scene when the attempted crossing happened and captured it on camera. Obviously, CNN did not stage the crossing. No news organization would do such a thing. but the claim was picked up by right-wing media outlets eager to attack the network. Fox's site and other conservative sites aggregated the American Prospect Post, suggesting it was possible that the entire report had been put on for show. So there's a couple of things here. First of all, calling the Prospect a website, I'm pretty sure the Prospect has been in print for quite a long time, has it not?
30 years.
So there's that. But then this is sort of a classic thing is to turn around a criticism that's actually coming from the left or a progressive outlet or an independent outlet and turn it into, oh, we're being attacked from the right.
Right.
Because
who tweeted it? This is CNN, but who tweeted it?
Oh, I can
show.
I'll share you.
Oh yeah,
I'll share
great.
it with
Share
you.
the thing. I'll post it. Great. Thanks.
This is from, I believe, Darcy's
statement. So this is from the Darcy Reliable Sources newsletter that came out on Friday.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Dan tweeted it, right? That's what we're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay, got it. So Dan, friend of show, of course, editor at the American Prospect. Nice to see him having your back, having the back of truth. I'm sure he was really conflicted about whether to stand up to these guys. Okay, yeah. So this is you right here.
By the way, that doesn't always happen. By the way, let's just say that. I mean,
I know.
It's not always the case that your editor will get out there in public, and of course, my editors always have, but like it isn't always the case that it happens.
Yes, well, so. Props to David. Yeah,
props to David. No, I meant more like I don't think David was conflicted about who was in the right on this. That's what I mean. And I say in the right in both senses of the word. I didn't even think of that. Okay, so here we go. That's what Matt was just talking about.
They also got the name of CBP wrong. So in addition to getting David's statement wrong, they also got the name of the agency wrong, which is,
wow.
Yeah.
Right. And then they go on to kind of sort of describe you as misinformation. So there's this section where he's saying, now you probably didn't hear about this particular conspiracy theory that went viral this week, and that's my point. For every piece of misinfo that is dismantled by a fact check, there are several more that flourish relatively unchallenged. So they're calling you misinfo or misinformation, which is, in this day and age, sorry to interrupt, Katie, it's just wanted to point out, it's kind of dangerous because misinformation is something that you can disappear from the web, on the whim of any of the major platforms these days. So it's not nice to be attached to that word these days.
No, definitely not.
In fact, who should we tweet out right now to invite onto the show, by the way? Let's do a live tweet challenge.
Matt Dornich.
Okay. So let's do that. Then we're going to get back because there's some good stuff to read here. But
I still have all of my questions that he never answered. So
so that's the other thing.
Yeah. You want to read them? How do you want to do this? We want to make sure we are providing a site of information in the sea of misinformation. CNN is providing the world with a lot of misinformation, disinformation. I don't know Putin has not denied that he's coordinating with them. They have not denied that they're coordinating with Putin. So I'm just saying it's possible. You know what I mean? We got to allow for that possibility.
Yeah, and this is another thing that I love. So Darcy does this newsletter, which is petty, right? And so
this thing that you're talking about that he released.
The Reliable Sources newsletter.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
It's unnecessary. It's like,
Yeah, I may have to reread it aloud because I don't think we did justice to how cheesy the writing is. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we can go back over it, but the point is, it's in the media business, if you have somebody who calls your story into question, there's really only a couple things to do. You either stand by your story, or you address whatever the questions are and move on. For them to kind of go that extra mile and talk about, use the dismissive language. It's a progressive website. It's misinfo. It's this and that. That's like tweaking the organization. And I think I'm getting the sense because David, actually, your editor, then responded by releasing even more info, which is the list of questions that you had sent to CNN that they didn't answer, right? And these are funny. They include, how is CNN connected with Tim Wilkins and the others who took the crew out in the river? Did CNN know in advance that Tim Wilkins is a local Republican candidate?
Let me just pause one thing because I want us to really nail this. Okay, so I'm gonna share my window of tweet so we can do this tweet. Okay, and that way we'll lay it all out, and then we will invite him on. Okay, so I'm gonna. How do we feel about should we quote tweet Oliver Darcy?
Sure. Yeah.
All right. So we're gonna quote. How about we quote tweet Dane's tweet about him?
Sure.
All right. So let me just share this.
The point being that I'm pretty sure. I don't want to speak for David, but I'm pretty sure he wouldn't have gone the extra mile of releasing that the list of questions that had gone unanswered if they hadn't been such jerks.
Oh yeah. He's just trying to get to the bottom of misinformation. Okay, so here, what do we call him? Mr. Darcy? What do we call him?
Sure. I think politeness goes a long way.
Mr. Okay. Darcy. Formerly, where was he before?
The Blaze? I think that's right.
We better look that up. Yeah, let's fact check that.
Someone want to fact check that?
Oliver Darcy. I think I was doing a little research, so I'm pretty sure this is true, but
yeah. See, we are reliable.
We fact check. That's right.
I think he used to you worked for Glenn Beck, right?
He was deputy managing editor at The Blaze.
Okay, I'm gonna put that in, okay? Because he says you're progressive, right?
Yeah, a progressive website.
Okay. Formerly of the what? What do we call them?
Of the Glenn Beck vehicle, or
okay, so former deputy manager. Is that what it is?
Yeah, he's deputy manager. That's his Business Insider thing says.
Deputy manager of the Blaze.
Yeah.
Of Glenn Beck vehicle. Okay.
Oh yeah.
And by the way, he has a bit of a history of. I hate to pick up on a Fox story, but they dug up his history of busting on CNN in his previous life.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and hang on, I'm gonna put that in the chat.
Okay, so dear Mr. Darcy, we are inviting you. What?
Are we tagging him?
Oh yeah, we're gonna. Oh yeah, totes. Yeah.
Yeah.
What is that?
I think it's at Oliver Darcy. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm really off today. Okay. All right. What do we want to say, guys? Matt,
please come on and discuss. Would you like to come on and discuss
some unanswered questions?
Yeah, the prospect story, but the American prospect story about the border crossing.
To some unanswered questions. Marcia Brown, or should we say, we're inviting you to respond to some questions you've refused to answer?
Well, no, they have not yet answered. Yeah.
Yes or no?
I mean, yeah.
Refuse is kind of a strong word.
All right. So tell me what to say, Matt. Just tell me right. I'm just a stenographer right now because I can't multitask, concentrate on this.
Yeah, it's fine. We're inviting you to respond to some unanswered questions from Marcia Brown of the American Prospect.
About what is it?
It's the Prospect. I think it's at the Prospect. Yeah.
Yeah. Do we say anything like? Yeah.
This is funny. This is like a broadcast Twitter.
Yeah, it is exactly. So, and then should I say Matt Taibbi and I are, or is that going to be too?
Well, then he definitely
you out of
it. Just put your handle and mine at the bottom. Or you're already there, yeah. So you can put mine.
So M Taibbi and I are. We're doing a lot of media challenges this week on Useful Idiots. Dear Miss Matt Taibbi.
Yeah, I had Joe Scarborough call me a Russian agent, or imply that I was actually probably both of us, Katie.
Did they take you on?
Spell my name right.
Did they take you up on the invitation?
Yeah, no, I just put it out. He's not going to. Yeah. But all right.
And we're inviting you to respond to some inviting you to respond to her unanswered questions, which we will be reading. Which you will be reading.
Which we are currently reading with glee.
I could think of some more because there have been some updates. So.
All right, awesome. And then I'm going to do a link to the screen to the show.
There you go.
All righty. Okay, keep going. I'll be done with this in a second. Then we can even review his response because I just think it's a great response. By the way, I love the bold subsections.
Mm-hmm.
They're really great. Okay, then I'm just gonna join us here. All right. I hope there weren't any typos. We'll see. Okay, let's go back to my thing. Let's see. Make sure I wrote it out right. Okay, that's good, right?
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna pin it. So really, he's gonna really
make a
mistake if he doesn't. All right.
Strong.
I didn't tag CNN. We'll do that next. But okay, let's see.
All right. So I guess what do you want to just quickly go back over Darcy's statement, just because you felt like we didn't nail that dismount there. Okay.
Progressive site to Fox. A progressive website called The American Prospect published a post suggesting that CNN aired a staged migrant crossing at the Rio Grande, possibly with the help of Customs and Border Patrol. The post was in reference. Sorry?
I said it should be protection.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So I
made the same mistake.
Oliver, we're also going to protect. We wish we could protect you from yourself and your errors. We're going to correct you. So it's really with the help of Customs and Border Protection.
And which is, sorry, go ahead.
No, keep going.
I was going to say, which is the agency in which U.S. Border Patrol is. So that's kind of the confusion, is that there's USBP and then CBP, but it's not the same. Yeah.
Okay, Oliver, I hope you took note of that. Okay. The post was in reference to a report from correspondent Ed Lavandera that aired, don't laugh at me, Matt, that aired earlier this month. Lavandera. That aired earlier this month, which showed dozens of migrants attempting a crossing along the U.S.-Mexico border. CNN was on scene when the attempted crossing happened and captured on camera.
I like on scene instead of on the scene. Like that's a conscious stylistic.
Yeah, what does that mean?
It just means that he's like, he's having flair in his writing. I like it.
Right.
I dig it.
Right. During the mise en scène. On scene when the attempted crossing happened and captured it on camera. Obviously, CNN did not stage the crossing. No news organization would do such a thing. Okay, again, reminder, this is a guy who used to work for Glenn Beck, right?
Yeah. Also, we never said that CNN staged it. We said they aired a staged crossing. Very different allegations.
Very different allegation. And also, they were warned about it ahead of time. They were warned of the allegation, and they ignored it, right? Which you'd think that the most trusted name in news would want to just look into it. But the claim was picked up by right-wing media outlets eager to attack the network. Fox's site and other conservative sites aggregated the American Prospect post, suggesting it was possible that the entire report had been put on for show. CNN spokesperson Matt Dornick pushed back immediately against the notion, saying that CNN did not participate in any type of coordinated effort to shoot a staged scene of migrants crossing the river, nor have we found any credible evidence that suggests our team was unknowingly part of a setup by Border Patrol or anyone else. Okay, here's some bold type. Yeah.
So can I just interject really quick? So with Matt Dornick, he did, and I included this in my story, there were some people who were talking about this before I wrote the story on Twitter, and he tweeted at them and he said, no way. And he also said that the two videos that I wrote about, one that went viral on right-wing media and the one that CNN aired were taken on different days, which is not the case. So even at the beginning, they didn't have their story straight.
Right. So you really, Matt, Dornick, you need to come out and apologize because you have two choices. You can say you were lying or you made a mistake. It's one of the two. It's true.
Yeah, I guess it's true. It is true.
What else could you explain it with?
Yeah, and the other thing, just before we go on,
Yeah.
you know, this line, obviously CNN did not stage the crossing. First, not only did you not allege that they staged the crossing, you even used language that said, basically didn't say that the crossing was absolutely 100% staged. The language was, the scene may not all be all, but it appears to be. Immigrant rights advocates and others claim that the footage was staged. In other words, you make the argument and you talk about all the reasons you might think that it's not staged, but you don't definitively say that, do you?
No.
Right.
So I mean, we just point out all of the questions and
right.
that, you know, the scene appeared to be not, you know, what it seemed.
Exactly. Right. Which is the responsible way to do it. And anyway, so then he goes on.
Someone just asked if this was the new Useful Idiots. No, this is a live. We're starting to do more live streams, but you can find Useful Idiots again at usefulidiots.substack.com, and that's where we have our regular shows, our podcasts. You can also subscribe to the RSS and our YouTube, but I just am saying that because I was in the comment. Okay, so back to the what we were just
We're in
reading.
bold type, I think.
In bold type, right. And Customs and Border Patrol issued a statement late Thursday saying, in part, that the agency, quote, categorically denies any suggestion that the U.S. States Border Patrol stage a migrant crossing for a media story.
And again, you got that wrong, right? It's border.
So remember, it's Customs and Border Protection issued the statement, and then that U.S. Border Patrol. So the quote is correct, but they still got the agency name wrong. They got it wrong like multiple times. I mean, every time they reference it, it's wrong.
Right.
Okay, again, are you lying or incorrect? If you don't respond to either, we're going to have to go with they lied and or aired. There's no other thing, right? I'm being generous. Those are the two options. Okay. Now, back to the statement. Okay, subheadline, all bold. Damage done. But by the time the agency issued its statement, it was too late. Reports had been published and disseminated on social media. The damage had been done. Yeah, we heard that. Even with the statement, the American Prospects executive editor, David Dayen, told me by email that the website stands 1,000% behind its story. Fox, which published the story days ago, still has it up on its website. I noticed that the article was updated to include the Customs and Border Patrol statement.
Protection.
Okay, Customs and Border Protection statement. Darcy, again, Mr. Darcy, please feel free to rewrite this with the corrections. You don't even have to cite Marcia, right? You'd be okay with that?
Yeah, that would be fine. I'm totally fine with that.
She's fine. She doesn't need the credit.
David's statement was 100% behind, not 1,000% behind. So
okay,
for what that's worth.
Really, Darcy, Mr. Darcy. Can I call you Oliver? There's something wrong with you. You can't help but write in hyperbole. Okay, so now you're going to have to clarify that. Were you wrong or lying? Matt, I feel like I'm allowed to do this, right? I think Matt's frozen, but it looks like he's just really perturbed. I want to make sure the ethics are okay. I'm saying this on my own behalf, not on behalf of Useful Idiots or Matt Taibbi, that I'm giving him two choices. Darcy. Come on, you have one. You have to tell us whether you're a liar. I'm not going to call you an idiot because that's not nice. So a liar or mistaken. That's all I'm going to say. All right. I mean, others would say the damage is done. You're a liar or inept, but I'm not like that. I'm not going to write in all bold, damage done. But yeah, so David, I was actually thinking, that's true, Marcia, he said 100%?
Yeah, I mean, I'm CC'd on the email, so yeah.
Okay, it's really funny.
Yeah, David tweeted it out.
And David said that, yeah.
Okay, not that this matters at all, but I was like, when I read that, I was like, I can't imagine him saying 1,000%. That's not really his style.
It's not at all.
It's not.
He's not 1,000%.
Yeah. I mean, I endorse him 1,000%, but he's not the type of person.
Right.
It's kind of like when they accused Bernie of buying that expensive coat, and I was like, it doesn't matter, but I kind of don't see him doing that. And of course, it turned out to be a gift from his son. All right. All roads point to Bernie. Okay. Let's see. I noticed the article was updated to include the Customs and Border Patrol
Protection
statement. That statement, however, was stuck at the bottom of the story, quite literally. It is in the last paragraph. The original headline and story still remain largely untouched. Now, you probably didn't hear about this particular conspiracy theory that went viral this week, and that's my point. For every piece of misinfo that is dismantled by a fact check, there are several more that flourish relatively unchallenged. You might not be aware of them, but they are out there. And they're reaching target audiences and influencing how the people in those audiences think about our political systems, institutions, and so much more. I have said it before, and I'll say it again. Our country has an info crisis on its hands.
It's kind of beautiful, actually, because he turns around what seems like their own screw up and makes it into an argument about how somebody else is a threat to democracy, which is, that's so skillful. I appreciate that.
Well, dangerous fact checkers.
True. I just think it's interesting how they threw this to their media reporter. They didn't even give an institutional response.
Right.
And sorry, I was just going to say the CBP statement that was issued. They sent that they sent that statement to CNN first. I didn't get it until Saturday at noon. So somebody was working really hard on a Saturday to get back to me a week later, but that's fine.
Wow.
Okay, you're talking about the Border Patrol Union statement?
No. So this is a statement from the agency. So this is a statement from Customs and Border Protection about U.S. Border Patrol, not from the union, from the agency itself, where they just deny any of these allegations, and then quote Biden's executive order about the humanity of immigrants.
Got it. Okay.
So what's...
and then whenever you want, no, take it away, Matt. But whenever you want, I do have the unanswered questions that David tweeted out. So up to you.
Yeah. So what's CNN's angle on this? I mean, is it just look they're trying to make do something to take some dramatic footage and make something out of it? I mean, it's not exactly like they have a mandate to beat the hell out of Joe Biden for any reason. But. Were they just duped and they thought it was a sexy piece of video, or what is this?
I mean, that is the question. I guess I lean towards that, but I can't really say definitively. But I mean, I think CNN has kind of gotten wrapped up in this media crisis narrative, just like all these other networks and even other sort of mainstream outlets. I don't really think it's necessarily CNN specific. And that's maybe the issue is that, again, these two crises are being conflated, sort of normal rising numbers of asylum seekers and migrants coming to the southern border. And then also this true humanitarian crisis of unaccompanied children, which is actually, again, all because of, the U.S.'s own policies.
Right. Yeah. And this is another thing I want to ask you, because this is a trope just in immigration reporting generally. I mean, I haven't covered this in a while, but I remember that this constant theme of they would use words like surge or like a sudden increase or something like that, or unprecedented to describe things that actually are statistically are pretty normal.
Very precedented.
Right. Yeah. Very precedented. And immigration stories have periodically turned into big media panics, over the years. I mean, is this just another case of that, where you can always make a border story look like an emergency because it always kind of looks like one?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely partly that. I think Caitlin Dickerson did a really great piece. She's covered immigration for a long time in the Atlantic, and she called it immigration amnesia, just because this kind of happens repeatedly, as you said. And, the border crisis can always be a crisis. I mean, last Friday, Ted Cruz and I think it was John Cornyn and several other senators, they went out on boats with like machine guns, stuck to the hull of the boat, and then just patrolled the Rio Grande, just because asylum seekers are so dangerous. Right. I mean, this is all part of a narrative. It's all kind of a PR stunt. And it becomes this thing where Biden has to, actually treat something like a crisis that isn't necessarily a crisis. And in his press conferences, what he's doing is answering questions about immigration and not answering questions about his next infrastructure bill and not answering questions about how he's handling the pandemic or DC statehood or whatever it might be.
The minimum wage or whatever.
Yeah,
right.
literally anything. I mean, instead
Right.
he was like, well, I guess maybe I'll be running for again in 2024. I mean,
Right. Yeah, and I love the framing of the questions too. It's like people are coming because they think that you're so awesome, and then he kind of did the Caesarian like refusing the laurels act part where he was saying, "Oh, I don't know if they're coming because they just love Joe Biden so much." It was strange. It was very concocted, but
and the border is
refusing laurel. Oh, sorry, no,
no. I mean, the border is like ultimately closed. I mean, most people are just being turned right around. There are very, very few exceptions to that. The only thing that's happening is basically if you have an open remain in Mexico case, so if you were forced to wait in Mexico for your asylum case for like 2 years and probably kidnapped and all these other horrible things, now you can be processed into the US. That's like the only thing, that's like one of the only ways you can get in right now. And so there's lots of deportation flights, especially of Black asylum seekers. It's just not, this whole narrative is very, I feel like it's missing some of the big picture.
Well, and also, it wasn't just that he was refusing the laurels. He was like, it was clearly he was trying to give himself an out. Like, he doesn't want to be blamed for this. He definitely doesn't want the narrative. He is walking that fine line, right? Because he ran as the human, empathetic person. You know, he did also say in public that he has no empathy for millennials. Give me a break. But he did run as the non-sociopath candidate, right?
Yeah.
And then he also wants to appeal to conservatives, so he doesn't want to, say that they're coming because of his more humanitarian positions. So with responding to these they felt very like spoon-fed questions. But he's like, they're not coming because I'm a nice guy. They come like this all the time. Nothing was
right.
So it was an interesting thing to see him walk that line.
Another question I have is, what has Title IV actually accomplished? I mean, has it accomplished anything?
No, it's just sent. Sorry, that maybe I should be less blunt, but I mean, it really has just sent a lot of people back into danger. And they have been testing. They test people who are processed into the U.S. as asylum seekers for COVID, and people who are processed into the U.S. under the last numbers I saw, it have like half the positivity rate of people who live in border communities. So I mean, there's just the threat that it is, that bringing in more people is going to spread COVID. I mean, there's a way to do it safely. The U.S. is demonstrating that by processing these remain in Mexico cases. And even at the time that it was issued in March 2020 under Trump's own CDC officials were saying this is a bogus health order. This has no real health benefits. This is just made up to completely close the border, which is what it did.
Okay.
Well, do you want to I think we maybe should allow, Darcy to respond to some of your questions, because I feel bad he didn't see them. Is that okay?
That sounds good.
Is he responding?
No, I want to give him the opportunity. Matt,
okay.
I'm calling him in.
I see. Do you want to read some of those questions just quickly? I think that's the last element of the story we have for the media.
Yeah, you can choose whichever ones you want to ask, whichever you think are most important, Marcia.
Oh, sure. Okay. So I think how was CNN connected to Tim Wilkins and others who took the crew out on the river? So for background, Tim Wilkins is this local GOP candidate who has said anti-immigrant things on Facebook. I have the screenshots to prove it. So that kind of thing. How was he connected to Tim Wilkins, and why was this the person who took them out on the river? And at what time and date did CNN actually go out on the boat, and for how long were they on the boat? So again, they said that they saw the boat go across 6 times, which I think would probably take about an hour at least. And during that time, no one was apprehended. Border Patrol never showed up. So again, some weird things going on there. And then I was just trying to also get confirmation. I have the email receipts that show that advocates did warn CNN about this video, but I just wanted to get confirmation. So did CNN or any other, did Ed or any other CNN crew member have any idea in advance that CNN would be able to capture a scene like this? Which again, they were planning this in advance. They knew they were going to go out, and in the video they say they stumbled across this, which seems pretty unusual. Let's see. There's so many.
Also, if they did have those warnings before they aired it, it's a little weird to not say so in the piece. If they actually didn't. So
yeah. And I also wanted to get confirmation about this infant that Tim Wilkins said fell into the water, which is just really terrible and awful. But we don't know anything about that. And so if CNN saw that would be good to know about. And then the other thing was, so one of the allegations about this is that the boat slips along this part of the river are pretty much controlled by Border Patrol. So in order to launch a boat, Border Patrol would be aware of that. So it's not necessarily that they would stop you from launching a boat, but they would know that you're launching a boat. So my question was, did Border Patrol know about the boat launch, and how did you get access to this boat launch? Let's see. And then I asked, so Ed Lavandera is based in Dallas, I believe, and he's covered the border before. So I asked, does CNN routinely see border crossings in broad daylight? And which advocates tell us never happened. Let's see. So yeah, I think those are kind of the big ones at this point. I think it's probably maybe worth noting that, so the Border Patrol Union has now denied any of this happening, in addition to the agency, Customs and Border Protection. And in their statement, they're actually calling for an FBI investigation into these allegations. So we'll kind of see what comes out with that. And then Henry Cuellar, Congressman Cuellar, a Democrat, he confirmed to me that the video that he shared, which he doctored to put new music across, so you couldn't hear the audio where the agents are talking about getting hooked up. And so he doctored that video. Anyway, so he shared the video, and he finally sent me a statement and said that Border Patrol gave that video to him. So he is saying he didn't get it from, right-wing media. He's saying he got it from Border Patrol, which didn't really answer any further questions of mine, but did give that confirmation.
And sort of one last sort of bigger picture question I wanted to ask is, in the one piece that you wrote, you talked about how your perception of the Title 42, is that what it's called? Right?
Yeah, the Title 42 health order. Yeah.
Right. Is that you described it as like a tool for the Biden administration to create an artificial pause in migration, to basically to allow the new administration to kind of sort things out and untangle some of the restrictions that Trump may have imposed. But from a cynical point of view, it just allows them to kind of put a clamp on the border and not have to think about it for a while, right? They don't have to come up with a real policy because they had this thing in place that just allows them to willy-nilly, close up the border for as long as they like. Right. Yeah.
Well, I think it's certainly backfiring at this point. So, it's the end of March, and Title 42 is still in place, which I think most immigrant rights advocates didn't think was going to be the case when the Biden administration took office. To be reasonable, people didn't expect overnight transformation, but people did expect a lot of change. And sort of at this point, there's Remain in Mexico processing, but a lot of these other Trump policies are still in place. I wrote that, and I thought it was sort of this artificial pause. I wrote that story now a month ago, I think, as a way, because there was a lot of stuff that the administration is going to have to build back up to process people and to, humanely get people into the asylum system, whatever it might be. And that's real, but it's also real that this order is, sending people to very, very dangerous situations, such as in Haiti. It's really not great.
And they have the authority to just repeal it, right?
Yeah, because it's through the authority of the CDC, so it's not a congressional law or absolutely.
Right. So it's kind of a win-win for them. They, it's it allows them to deal with a lot of logistical problems, but politically they can put it all on Trump for the time being.
I think that's true, but I also think that they are taking a political hit for it because Republicans are now basically just saying that, Biden is he's not the humanitarian president he's going to be on immigration. I mean, so I guess, it's kind of the same thing. Republicans have turned this, story that maybe shouldn't have been the biggest story into the main event. And I think it's, it's partly Biden has really high approval ratings. They just passed the American Rescue Plan, which is very popular. And so they're seizing on this thing that is always polarizing and that it really gets to the sort of xenophobia and racism of their base. So.
Yeah, right. That's interesting. And, also I just feel like this story is such a classic example of sort of the difference between how big media organizations and kind of more independent media organizations deal with situations like this. Like the reflexive CNN response is to belittle you and then accuse you of being part of the problem.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Rather than, and this is part of also a new fashion where, a lot of these sort of bigger media organizations no longer feel like they have to issue a correction, even if they get busted, or even if they themselves have a suspicion the story's wrong, they now kind of feel like they can get away with just saying it didn't happen, Yeah,
I mean, it's just one of these things where it's sort of like they try to bury it in the Friday night newsletter. They didn't do an institutional response. It was just from their media reporter, who was like still defending CNN, but is somehow their media reporter.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, it is, as you're saying, it's very classic. And also they just ignored me and they let it go to press. If they, really were concerned about it, they could have responded to my questions and said, here's all these ways that your story is, or what people are telling you is wrong. And here's why we know it's wrong. And they didn't do that. You're right. They didn't do any kind of, as far as I know, investigation. Yeah.
Right, they didn't engage you, and then when it did come out, their response, like they didn't have somebody who's a subject matter expert reporter deal with it, right? Like that wasn't their response. They could have done another story that not only said, well, this story is true, but here's why this is not unusual, and here's what our experience is covering this kind of thing. For them to put it on a media reporter, I think speaks volumes, right? It kind of tells you how they do this, right? So it's interesting. Yeah. But anyway, fascinating stuff. And I'm curious to see how long this remains in the news cycle, because this is the kind of thing that CNN can't afford to have happen. Like the Republicans are just desperate for this kind of screw up to happen, and the more they do, they sort of non-answer questions like this. I don't know. I'm just curious to know what you think. I mean, like what should they be doing to make this go away? I mean, they could just answer a couple of these questions, right? I mean, I think it's sort of, it's hard, I think, when you're a reporter and you've been doing it for a long time to admit that you're wrong, or that you got duped, or that or maybe you thought it was true and it was only 75% true. I mean, making a correction sucks, but it's really, really important. And when you're talking about misinformation and trust, how are you going to not issue a correction if there are questions, or at least give a full explanation? Because right now, I think there are just so many outstanding questions that there are a lot of people, at least I'm seeing, in comments and in Twitter, saying, we don't understand why you're not answering these questions. We don't know the full story. This seems really questionable, which sort of just lends itself to even more confusion and, to use Oliver Darcy's word, misinformation. So it's just, I mean, I think in terms of handling it, they shouldn't have thrown it to their media reporter. It would have been nice to have had a conversation with somebody who, is in their comms to say, hey, look, we're looking into this, or even have addressed it before publication. I mean, if they really wanted to crack down on misinformation, they would have said before publication, hey, we're working to answer your questions. Can you wait to publish? Or at least just say, like, we are working to answer your questions. And I would say, well, I'll update the story when you get back to me. And they just never did. So that would have been the professional thing to do, right? Like,
I mean, I know we're a small progressive website, but like,
Right, exactly. Well, we're 1,000% glad that you came on to talk with us about this today.
10,000%.
Yeah.
Well, I'm 100,000% grateful. So.
Yeah. And if there's anything you want to make sure people know, just from your experience being there, and I know you've crossed the border back and forth.
Well, yeah. Well, there's no such thing as a COVID test going back and forth, so that's something to know. I mean, that's the other thing is, as an American, I just walked across the border a bunch of times, and there was no problem. And there's sort of this sort of fake fomented crisis about asylum seekers are going to bring in COVID. And that's just not really the case. So, I mean, I think we talked about Title 42, which I think is really, really important for people to understand. I think it's becoming a bigger issue. People are having more awareness about it the longer it lasts in the Biden administration. I mean, just to emphasize, there's virtually no asylum at the border right now. And that is against national law. That's against international law. I mean, it's just inhumane. It's just not the way things are supposed to work.
International law. Come on now.
Yeah, I mean, sorry, agreements that we signed as a country. But yeah, I mean, I think those are really important to know, and I will keep following the CNN story. So
absolutely. Well, let us know if anything changes, and thanks so much for coming on. Katie, is there anything else that you want to get to?
No, that's it.
All
it was
right.
also, the American Prospect was founded by one of the founders, is Robert Reich. So, interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting.
Wonder what thinks of him.
Yeah, I wonder. That's another question we can ask him once we finally get him in our talons.
When he comes on our show this week,
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
You guys, I don't know. I just want to announce that he may be coming on our show this week. He hasn't denied it.
He hasn't. Yeah, we don't know that. That's not happening for sure yet. So yeah. Marcia, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
And,
thank you both so much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and everyone follow her.
All right, and thanks everybody for tuning in.
Yeah, Matt, anything that you and I should say to people about what we're doing about our show?
No,
In general.
We're gonna, this is sort of a trial run for some stuff we're gonna try to do a little bit more in the future. Like, we have a little bit more flexibility now, so when there's something that's in the news, rather than wait a couple of days and have it come out 4 or 5 days after the fact, we're going to try to get on top of it, that day, every now and then. So we're just going to do a little bit more of this live content. Please let us know what you think we could do to improve it, or what you'd like to see.
Or if there or you're so Catholic, Matt. Please let us know what we did wrong so far.
Yeah, exactly. So we can, right. So
but also let us know if there are things happening that you want us to live stream.
Exactly. Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Please, if there are events you want us to cover or comment on, like, we have some other thoughts about things we might be able to.
Oh, look, David, thank you. Prank calls would be so much fun.
Oh, like turkey voice type stuff?
Yeah. They're not, Robert Reich we haven't talked to him. I was trying to say that Darcy may be coming on. We don't know.
Right.
If he doesn't respond, Darcy, I'm waiting for comment from let's hear what his response is. Yeah. All right. Get the notifications out. I don't know how we do that. Oh, no, I created the event anyway.
Yeah.
All right. Well, guys, make sure you go where? Make sure you go to, we should prank call Biden. Make sure you go to usefulidiots.substack.com. And that we'll be using the Useful Idiots YouTube very shortly. We're just getting things set up.
That's right. Yeah. Little by little.
Okay. Little by little. Inch by inch, row by row. Going to make this garden grow. All right. See
Thanks
you guys.
so much. And we'll see you again soon.
Yeah.